As someone who spent a fair amount of time in a church as a child, I can honestly say deciphering Shakespeare comes a lot easier to me than trying to understand God's messages in the Bible. Between him and Jesus, predictions about the future are many and murky, but I promise I've done my very best to find the most ominous ones to share with y'all today. I'm your resident ooky spooky girly Alexa, and welcome to the top 5 scary predictions from the Bible we pray don't come true. In 5th place, we have the threats of pestilence. To quote directly from Matthew 24, "And there shall be pestilences." I think I speak for all of us on Earth when I wonder if we've already started to go through with that promise. The last 3 years have been so greatly affected by plague and illness, and I'm not quite sure we will ever have a definite end, which was almost scary enough to put this higher up on my list. Thankfully, with being able to protect so many against the current illness and reopening the world, this isn't the great illness we need to fear. Biblical judgments through disease are said to be supernatural in origin. For example, when God sent boils to Egypt, they broke out instantly on humans and animals throughout the land. The pestilence of Revelation will come from one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Everything the world has gone through in the last few years was natural, not supernatural. God did not cause this virus or the panini it created. Secondly, biblical judgments are against specific sins and sinners. From Pharaoh's obstinacy to Herod's prideful idolatry, divine judgments of the past and future come to those who refuse his word and will. Throughout scripture and history, God deals with us as gently as he can or as harshly as he must. It has been preached that no specific sins cause this virus, nor are those who are afflicted with it more sinful than the rest of us. God is, quote, said to love the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions just as much as he loves the young and the healthy. I worry what could happen in the future that could be worse. Mentally, you do not want to see me cooped up again for another year. And as much as I love a good Sleepy Hollow marathon, I don't need to see a horseman of the apocalypse in person. In 4th place, we have the promises of hate. Once again from the book of Matthew, many will be offended and betray each other. Similar to my last point, I worry this prediction may already be beginning to show in today's society. With the news that comes across my feed every day, I worry for the world as we know it. According to the Bible, where there is conflict, there is the potential for hate, which leads to discord, disharmony, malice, and anger. Hate is a motivator for wicked behavior, and the Bible helps identify hate by showing how indulging in it leads to certain outcomes. Hate is not just an emotion, but a state of being that involves choices, behaviors, and thoughts. It separates people rather than bringing them together, because the one hating sets themselves away from another. Hate is intimately tied in with death, and it is said that someone harboring hate is killing their brother in their heart. When this hate is acted upon, it leads to death. Sometimes that is spiritual or relational, but unfortunately it can also be the ending of the life of another. Hate is dangerous because when taken to its logical conclusion, it is the desire to eliminate the humanity of another. I'd like to hope that we as a society can heal from the hatred in our hearts, avoiding this prediction from coming true.
In the year 2111, Vanga predicts that we will start to cast off the weakness of our flesh and embrace the strength and certainty of steel to claim the purity of the blessed machine. Yes, of course, Vanga speaks to the Omnissiah and says that in the next century, technology and medical science will have advanced so sufficiently that humanity will become more mechanical than organic, which could take a little adjusting. Might want to watch yourself shaking hands if the guy you're shaking hands with has a titanium alloy with a hydraulic piston grip. Now maybe I'm in a minority here, but this is actually a prediction I can very much get down with. I have been wanting cybernetic parts for pretty much as long as I can remember. I would probably redo all of this and chip in as much as possible. It goes in line with Vanga's prediction of humanity living to unreached life expectancy and achieving wondrous strides in science and technology. Of all of Vanga's many predictions, this one seems the most likely to me. I mean, we're already making such incredible leaps in prosthetic technology. Things like a cybernetic hand, which once seemed like something out of Star Wars make-believe, but in the last decade we've already seen advancements in the field of prosthetics, like limbs that move and ambulate like any other limb, controlled by the brain, and even recently scientists and specialists have started to make progress on cybernetic hands capable of feeling touch, responding to heat. It's more likely than not that by the year 2111, like she outlined, we will start to see implants like that commonplace. Of course, who's to say what kind of new social problems that'll cause? Cybernetic discrimination? Ethics debates? All I know is that if we are going to start enhancing ourselves and mechanically alternating ourselves, I definitely want in immediately.
Number 2, washed up. Yeah, so again, the Long Island medium has got nothing on Baba Vanga. Speaking of Long Islands, some are disappearing and some are being created as we speak right now. Hurricane Ian is absolutely devastating the south right now, blasting all kinds of mess through the Golden Coast. Tsunamis and flooding is one of Baba Vanga's more worrying predictions though, as she has predicted a cataclysmic tsunami that would strike this year. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, I guess? Baba is said to have first warned the world of a deadly 2004 tsunami that unfortunately took more than 200,000 lives in Southeast Asia. She then said to have warned of a similar cataclysmic event in the future in 2021, quote, "Difficult times will come, people will be divided by their faith, we are witnessing devastating events that will change in fate the destiny of our humanity," end quote. That just sounds like a Michael Bay movie summary. This tsunami prediction was said to hit in 2020, then 2021. Are we just late with all these floods down south right now on the calendar-wise? Like, did we forget a leap year here or there? What's going on? Satellite images from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration showed beach houses, cottages, even hotels on the shores of Florida that have been demolished by flooding waters. Hit the Carolinas, Virginia, Florida, Cuba, Puerto Rico. More than 2,000 people have since been rescued, according to Florida's emergency, as a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 150 miles an hour. The National Guard, the Coast Guard, they're both working together right now. Ian is expected to slowly weaken this week as it heads inland to the north, but supposed to bring heavy rain and flooding to the mid-Atlantic. A flood watch is now in effect for a large portion of the south. Does it say anywhere that we make it out of this mess? Fires, floods, aliens, like give us a place to donate, would ya?
Our number one spot for the scariest prediction by Baba Vanga is, well, the outright end of the universe. That's kind of a hard one to top. Now don't run to the calendar just to check yet how long we've got left, because some good news is that even if Baba Vanga is correct, it won't happen in your lifetime, or your kid's lifetime, or your grandkid's lifetime, or your great-grandkid's lifetime, with Vanga predicting that the end of all of this and everything is going to happen around the year 5709. So we got a long way off to go before that happens. Before the curtains close on this whole existence thing, Vanga predicts that things are going to get pretty wild before the end. Apparently by the year 5706, our knowledge of the stars will be so vast that we'll be able to chart the entire known universe right to the edge of the galaxy. A few years later, in the year 5078, Vanga predicts that we're going to try and venture out past the Milky Way to see what else there is in our ever-expanding cosmos, and try to explore outside of our galaxy. Now, allegedly 60% of the human population volunteers to brave the new frontier past Andromeda, while the remaining 40% feel pretty comfortable in this universe and elect to stay at home. I'm probably the same way, to be honest. If I'm still ticking around 5078, I'm probably just gonna stick around here. This universe has all my stuff in it. Vanga interestingly didn't specify how it would end. I guess some things have to be left up for surprises. I wouldn't want the ending spoiled anyway. Just that in 5709, it would be the end of human civilization and the Earth as we know it. It's stressful, definitely, but at least it's not happening for a little bit, you know? We've got some time to plan. Dear Sweet Granny Vanga had a prediction for just about everything. Is Vanga's prediction that by 2088, the Earth will be exposed to a new strain of virus unlike any other experience before, allegedly capable of aging a human being in a matter of seconds. Now, it's not known how the virus spreads or manifests, just that once you're infected, you'll age up rapidly, and the next thing you know, you'll be in a retirement castle. Sounds very useful if you're trying to get into an R-rated movie as a kid, and horrifying under literally any other context. Now, if Vanga's prediction is already making your hair go prematurely gray, you should know that she also predicted by the year 2046 that humans would live well past 100 with a combination of organ transplants and cybernetic parts, so maybe aging up isn't that big a deal. Maybe by then technology will have advanced enough and we can just flip a switch and age back down like Benjamin Button. At least we've got upwards of the next 60 years to get a handle on this. Allegedly by the year 2097 the disease is eradicated. Or maybe we can all just improve our skincare routines a little bit. I hear removing wrinkles does wonders to reverse the aging process.
Number 4, aliens. As always, if you dig what we do here on Top 5 Scary, make sure to hit that like button or comment down below which prediction she said that's got you shook. Vangelia has hit the nail on the head a couple of times now, huh? Why aren't there more people talking about her? We need some Netflix budget original movies about her, people. Let's go. It's scary to think that beyond the grave, there have been people throughout our history who still continue to defy the odds. She's the Nostradamus of our time. Well, apparently she's called a couple things beyond our galaxy as well, and recently, quote, the invasion of Earth by aliens with the arrival of an asteroid. Yeah, she just called that. I got about 46 hours last night on Reddit alone of aliens zipping around our atmosphere, but she's specific. She added asteroids into the mix. the blind mystic alleged that an asteroid named Oumuamua would be sent by aliens to seek life out on planet Earth. Well, it just so happens there, Baba, that Avi Loeb at the University of Harvard and the Galileo Project, yeah, they're convinced themselves as well. And remember that rock anomaly that buzzed through our orbit and then out again in 2017? Again? Yeah, like nobody's talking about this. How did she predict the name though? Like, can we get a deep dive on that? Is that true? She also predicts that by 2130, all civilizations will learn how to live underwater with the help of aliens. In other words, we're sending underwater probes to Europa next year, so I don't know, maybe? Baba Vanga smack dab in 2023 predicts that somehow the Earth's orbit will, quote, change. I mean, if we do that, the planet will be a total cataclysm, but maybe she was talking about NASA's DART program that just smashed into an asteroid like last week?
Number 3, a change in the Earth's orbit. There's a lot of wonderful things to like about the planet Earth. Lush fields, flowing water, and its orbit exactly where it should be, which is quite an underrated but fantastic trait of the big blue marble we call home. Baba Vanga made another worrying prediction about the state of the Earth for 2023. She predicted that somehow something is going to knock Earth off of its orbit forever. Now, it should go without saying that something knocking Earth off of its orbit would be very bad. If Earth somehow was thrown off its orbit by some terrible force, it would wreak incalculable havoc. Countries would be thrown into cycles of days and nights that would last not for hours, but for months at a time. Think of the damage that would be caused. Unending daylight would lead to mass sleep deprivation, global anxiety, as well as incalculable damage to our flora, fauna, and wildlife. Crops would be ravaged and burnt, leading to a global famine. Unending days would lead to temperatures doubling, melting the ice caps at an even faster rate than they already are. This would result in massively rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal cities. Unending night wouldn't be much better, as it would make things very cold, and plant life would have no way to achieve the necessary photosynthesis, resulting in crop failures and once again, countless deaths. Interestingly, this is a recognized phenomenon called a polar night, and there's a town in Norway that experiences something like this. In Tromsø, the sun doesn't rise from November to January. While this is fine for a Norwegian town, a polar night taking place in the bread bowl is a recipe for disaster, and that's not even mentioning how much easier that would make it for vampires to attack us. Number 2, a solar storm. With all the rather dire predictions made by Baba Vanga, it could be tempting to call her a pessimist. One of her more devastating predictions for the year ahead is that we will experience what is known as a solar storm. A solar storm refers to phenomena taking place on the surface of the sun, such as coronal mass ejections or solar flares. If one of these coronal mass ejections were to reach Earth, it would cause a geomagnetic storm that would have horrible consequences for our technology-reliant world. This kind of storm has happened before on Earth in 1859 in what has since been called the Carrington Event, due to the work of astronomer Richard Carrington. It resulted in telegraph networks being knocked out, as well as people using electronics being electrocuted, and even some pretty nasty fires. But it would be much worse if it happened today. Imagine, if you will, a world where all of the technology you take for granted was suddenly fried and unusable. Suddenly, internet access and records would be lost. Communication systems that we have come to rely on to keep our world running would become useless blocks of dead machinery. A world of darkness where chaos reigns and the financial markets are suddenly put into a dramatic tailspin that we could not even begin to reverse the effects of for years. Think of the chaos that took place relatively recently in Texas when the power grid went down, and imagine what would happen if that took place all over the world. The effect of this happening now could be no less than the total collapse of modern society. This is one of the most plausible predictions made by Baba Vanga, as some scientists say that since this kind of solar activity has happened before, we are overdue for it to happen again, and that is a matter not of if, but rather of when it happens. Considering the disastrous global consequences of one of these severe solar storms, let us hope that Baba Vanga is incorrect in her prediction that this will happen in 2023. Number 1, an alien invasion. One of Baba Vanga's most surprising predictions for 2023 is that this is the year we will make contact with visitors from another world. Unfortunately for us, these visitors will apparently not be coming in peace. She says that aliens will attack the Earth, and that during their invasion, they will use technology in order to prevent us from using electricity for 3 days and 3 nights, and that the Earth will be plunged into total darkness, with neither the moon or the stars being visible. We've already gone over how reliant we are on technology in the previous entry, so imagine how difficult it would be for us to suddenly be thrown back to the Stone Age and then have to try and fight an alien race who have extremely advanced technology as well as a desire to kill us. Baba Vanga claims that this will not be the end of the species as a whole, and that 10,000 of us will survive. But considering that we currently have a planet-wide population of 7.8 billion people, 10,000 survivors indicates only a 1.28% survival rate, meaning that for all practical purposes, it would be the end of the world as we know it. Apparently, peace with extraterrestrials is something we will eventually achieve, as Baba Vanga predicts that in the year 2130, aliens will be helping us to construct underwater cities, which will manage to become autonomous by producing their own power and food by 2195. These underwater cities are even more impressive when you consider that Baba Vanga also predicts that the Earth will become dry and desertified by 2170. Baba Vanga also predicts that in the year 2288, humanity will discover time travel, and that this is when aliens and humans will make contact. Which is interesting, as she already said that the first contact in war with the aliens would happen 265 years prior. And if this is first contact, who are the aliens helping us build the underwater cities on the dry desert planet of Earth 158 years earlier in 2130? Do all these contradictions have anything to do with the time travel we will discover? Truly, Baba Vanga gets more and more mysterious as time goes by. Number 5. Oh great, more viruses. Considering how ill-prepared we turned out to be for the last super virus that ravaged the world, the idea of more viruses in the future is somehow equal parts terrifying and exhausting. Baba Vanga actually predicts a few different viruses will come to light, but the soonest will not affect humans, though it is still disturbing. According to Baba, in 2023, birds will be subjected to a deadly virus that will transmit through both the air and contaminated water. It will spread incredibly fast, wiping out entire flocks in weeks and leaving many species of bird on the brink of extinction. Scientists will apparently scramble to try and find a cure for our avian friends, but the now common sight of a flock of birds flying through the air will become a distant memory. This doesn't directly affect humans, but considering how much chicken we as a species eat, this will be a tough loss if it comes to pass. The next virus Baba Vanga predicts will apparently take hold in 2088 and will be unlike anything we've ever seen. It won't cause humans to have trouble breathing or for their immune systems to be compromised, but will apparently cause people to age extremely rapidly, resulting in a young person in their 20s looking like a senior citizen within a few seconds. This virus will apparently be an issue for humanity for almost 10 years, when it is apparently exterminated in 2097. We will then apparently get a break from pandemics until the year 2256, when a rocket sent to explore the deepest parts of the cosmos will return to Earth carrying an intergalactic virus. Hopefully, this virus won't be too intense, as a universal cure for all diseases isn't predicted until the year 4304. Though by then, Baba Vanga says that humans will no longer live on Earth, but on Mars, so make of that what you will. Number 4. A dangerous bioweapon. In 1925, the Geneva Convention decided to ban the use of biological weapons in war, with all the countries making a promise to never, under any circumstances, develop, produce, stockpile, or otherwise acquire or retain microbial or other biological agents or toxins, whatever their origin or method of production, of types and in quantities that have no justification for prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purposes. They also agreed not to develop weapons, equipment, or means of delivery designed to use such agents or toxins for hostile purposes, or in armed combat. For the most part, the countries of the world have stuck to this agreement, other than some outliers such as the Soviet Union and Iraq. Unfortunately, one of Baba Vanga's other predictions for 2023 says that a large country will begin testing a new bioweapon. She is sparse on the details, but if this is true, which of the large nations will be carrying out the test? Will it be Russia, the United States, China? Who? And what is the nature of this bioweapon? Does it contain lab-grown viruses that could wreak havoc on humanity, or some other deadly mutagen that could permanently alter the DNA of its victims? Although she has had a few predictions that came true, Baba Vanga also said that World War III would begin in 2010, and that by 2016, Europe would become an empty wasteland. So hopefully, this is one of the predictions that turns out to not be true, as the idea of chemical weapons being unleashed this year is simply too much for me to deal with on top of everything else going on.
Number 3. Celestial Fire. And before we move forward, we really gotta think of a nickname for this guy. Nostradamus is just a mouthful and a half. Mussy? No, that's way worse. Okay, never mind. We're just gonna keep calling him Nostradamus for now. You know what, if you ghouls and goblins can think of a good Nostradamus nickname, throw that down in the comments, because I am spending so much time saying this guy's name. Our favorite Farsi Frenchman with no good nicknames wrote in his big book of predictions that there will be a celestial fire on the royal edifice. So what does that mean for us? What is a celestial fire if not a Destiny 2 melee ability? Warlocks are going to dominate a new Crucible map? It's unlikely, as Nostradamus' predictions on Destiny's meta have frequently been inaccurate, and most historians believe he actually would have played a Voidwalker instead of a Dawnblade. Experts in transcribing Nostradamus' work believe that this excerpt from his poetry could be referring to the destruction of the royal palace, with many believing it to refer to the royal family in the UK. So should King Charles put a big fireproof umbrella over Buckingham Palace? Some have suggested that this could be far more dramatic, referring to Buckingham Palace being completely destroyed and from its ashes a new power rising. The prophet continues to say that an unlikely alliance will occur of two great powers that will come together. Now, who would this new world order be? Benevolent, to lead us to a new golden age, or dark new overlords to oppress us all? It's always a possibility that it could be reptile people. Number 2, man-eating? No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat, that man has stirred his fellow man to eat in his despair. Now, at first, this seems like the ramblings of an old man who just came back from Walmart and saw the price of honey and is going off on a tirade. But that little snippet about man eating his fellow man sticks out just a little bit, doesn't it? This prediction is pretty directly doomsaying, with our good friend and master of mysticism, Nostradamus, suggesting that in the future, things are going to get so bad that food is going to become so expensive that the common fella won't be able to afford any honey, wheat, or Honey Nut Cheerios, and will be pushed in desperation to start eating his fellow man. Hey, there really was not a lot going on back then if the scariest thing he could think of was honey getting so expensive that it would cause a full-on societal breakdown and cause us all to start eating man. You think they're gonna sell that in grocery stores? Obviously this one is a bit drastic as far as his predictions go, and definitely a bit scary unless you're the kind of person that watches The Walking Dead and wishes, gosh, I wish that was me. And if you are, you should probably talk to someone, they just want to help. But there is some truth to this. Prices of basic groceries are going up and up every year. I mean, you can walk into the Walmart and see the price of honey yourself, with inflation creeping its ugly little head a little more each year. It's been a consistent concern as well that bees are going to go extinct in our lifetime, with the population of honeybees declining rapidly yearly. For our sake, and the bees, we need to do something to save the planet, if not just for the ecosystem and the planet as a whole, but also because apparently if we run out of honey, that's the first thing that causes us to all start going Texas Chainsaw Massacre on each other. Number 1, Great Discord. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Like most of Nostradamus' writings, this one sounds a bit like the opening monologue to one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And wow, hey, honey again. Honey was a really serious cause of concern for this guy. I think if nothing else, Nostradamus took his morning tea incredibly seriously. So besides crying over spilled milk and honey, what do the experts have to say about this one? Was Nostradamus banned from his Discord server and writing out against the tyrannical mods? Well, like most of the predictions on this list, this unnerving quatrain seems to suggest that dire violence will plague us, with unrest between the classes leading to full-scale rebellion and riots. This little ditty seems to support that, with Nostradamus writing that sooner and later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances. Well, I don't know about you, but I support great changes definitely, though I'm a little less sure about dreadful horrors and vengeances. The last few years have seen more civil unrest than ever, with it seeming like there's a mass-scale protest or riot every couple of weeks somewhere in the world. It's easy to flick on the news and see that and wonder if it's eventually going to hit a boiling point, and when it does, if we'll see some serious changes. Or at the very least, some positive progress towards the price of honey. Because I'm really not looking to get eaten by anyone anytime soon. I'm just, look at me, I'm so twiggy, I will barely even make a good snack. Just pass me over, okay? Number 5, World War III. In his big book of predictions known as his quatrains, Nostradamus wrote that 7 months the Great War, people dead of evil doing. Rowan Evru shall not fall to the king. Now if you've watched any of our videos on Nostradamus, you'll know that he usually keeps his predictions pretty vague and cryptic, as a centuries-old mystic astrologer is wont to do. But here he's treating us to a prediction so easy to read, even I can follow along. Nostradamus predicts that there will be a great war, and that if the quatrain is anything to go off of, Europe will be the theater for the conflict. But in a small hope spot for the city of Rouen, France, they are not going to fall to the king. Good for them. That's the only city he specified is going to be okay. Now who could this king be referring to? A world leader? An army maybe? The mascot for Burger King? I know if any fast food mascot is going to start a world war, it is absolutely that guy, although Grimace has always been a wild card. Don't trust him even a little bit. Now obviously, jokes aside, this is a tense subject. The current situation in Europe is already a cause for serious global stress, and no one wants to see it develop any further, especially into a great war. Although that's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? I'm not sure if great is the right word to describe any wars. Maybe in size, sure, but I don't think anyone involved in an international war would describe it to you as a great time. The quatrain doesn't specify when, but with the world watching Europe now, it's definitely on the back of all of our minds that we hope this doesn't come true. Let's take a break from bumming each other out talking about global conflicts. You having fun with the channel? Toss a subscribe our way to catch it all. Number 4, Asteroids. A great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will appear both stupefying and marvelous. Shortly afterwards, there will be an earthquake. Ever since a big rock wiped out the dinosaurs, I think it's been a little bit on the back of our minds worrying that maybe something like that might happen to us someday. If something is gonna stop a T-Rex, I don't even feel a little bit confident about my odds. This quatrain here makes it seem like we've gotta be watching the skies. And while I certainly hope this is just Nostradamus referring to the world's best 4th of July celebration and a whole long weekend fireworks session, people who spend a whole lot more time than me reading about Nostradamus theorize that this could be referring to an asteroid strike on our sweet blue planet, which is going to be both stupefying and marvelous, which honestly sounds very, very nice were it not for the earthquake. Lucky for us, and terrible for extinction event enthusiasts, sorry, our good friends at NASA have recently demonstrated their DART technology, short for Double Asteroid Redirection Test. And I gotta wonder how many acronyms they tried before landing on that one, because DART sounds so clean. It's a system in place to change the trajectory of asteroids. Successfully, no less. Just a few weeks ago, for the first time in humanity's history, we changed the path of a celestial object. So take that, Nostradamus. Bet you didn't predict we were gonna go to space to push something out of the way. And hey, asteroids, you think you're so tough? Well, take that, never-ending cosmos and unending might of the eternal stars. We're just gonna push you right out of the way. We don't care. Number 3, more plague. Oh, that's the last thing any of us need. Well, take a listen to this doom prophecy. Near the gates and within 2 cities, there will be 2 scourges, the likes of which has never seen. Famine within plague, people put out by steel, crying to the great immortal God for relief. Well, this doesn't sound fun at all. I'm not sure anybody wants this. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this has experienced more than enough plagues to last us a lifetime. Of course, it's unfortunately kind of foolhardy to think that humanity will never experience another viral epidemic because, well, germs are always going to exist unless we eradicate them entirely. So all we can do is brace ourselves for the next one and hopefully learn from the past. I mean, that's why we're looking all the way back to an old French astronomer who was writing things in the 15th century, and the off chance that any of it might help us out. Well, he might be on the money with this one again, because recently in 2021, researchers in Siberia uncovered in a block of ice 33 strains of ancient novel viruses. Now, novel means that they haven't been discovered before, not that they're just kind of fun and no trivia. Personally, I would put them back in the iceberg, I think, and then I would put like a tarp or maybe some tape over it. I think we should just deal with that where it is, and we should not be bringing any ancient prehistoric viruses into today's times. I think I'm good. Now, what really concerns me about this quatrain is the picture that it paints. Near the gates and within 2 cities, the people will be put out by steel, crying to the great immortal God for relief. Oh, that's dramatic. Could this be a reference to some power taking out its own citizens? Armies firing at infected individuals? Now, it could be that, but it could also be possible that Nostradamus somehow had a powerful vision into the future, and he was just watching an episode of The Last of Us, and he was basing his predictions around that. Good on him for not spoiling that series for 500 years. Number 2, economic crisis. Take a listen to this. No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred to eat his fellow man in despair. Now, I'm not an economist. I'm a YouTuber, sort of. But I don't need to be an economist to tell you that things have been getting pretty expensive and everyone's feeling their purse strings tighten up. I can't tell you how many times this week I've had pasta with no sauce for dinner. Admittedly, I don't buy a ton of honey or candle wax, so I can't really comment on how accurate that all is, but I can definitely tell you that my weekly groceries are getting a lot more expensive. The fear, of course, here is that I think eating your fellow man in despair really does not sound like the good option. Now, there are a couple different ways we could take this interpretation. We could take it very literally, suggesting that things are going to get so dire and so bad that we'll have so little food to go around that we're forced to consume one another to survive, which really doesn't sound pleasant. And while I'm talking, I'd just like to throw out here, I am way too stringy to be valuable as meat. I mean, look at me, I'm like a bird, I'm hollow, so I wouldn't make a good meal out of me at all, so don't even bother trying over here. Alternatively, it could be interpreted in a more esoteric way. And since he's an old astronomer, I'm sure he spoke esoterically most of the time. He could be referring to the idea of eating the rich. If people get so fed up with the costs of living on just about everything and decide to revolt and strike back at the people in charge, hoping to dismantle the systems in place, which, hey, funny enough, actually leads into a segue for my next point really well. It's almost like I set that up. Number 1, great discord. Take a listen. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Like most of Nostradamus' writings, this one does sound a bit like it's the opening monologue to one of the Lord of the Rings movies, and wow, honey again. Honey was like a really serious cause of concern for this guy. I think he might not have been an astronomer. He might just have been a man who took his morning tea incredibly seriously. So besides crying over spilled milk and honey, what do our great Nostradamus experts have to say about this one? Was Nostradamus banned from his Discord server and writing against the tyrannical mods? Well, like all of the ones on this list, this unnerving prediction seems to suggest that dire violence will come to plague us, with unrest between the masses and classes leading to full-scale rebellion and riots. This little ditty seems to support that, with Nostradamus writing that sooner and later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances. Well, I support great changes, definitely. I'm a huge fan of great changes, but I am not so sure about dreadful horrors and vengeances. I feel like I've seen more than enough of those. The last few years have seen more civil unrest than ever. Like, this is the most upset I've seen people in my life, at least. With it seeming like that somewhere around the world there's a mass-scale protest or riot every couple of weeks. You know, it's easy to flick on the news and you see that and wonder if eventually we're gonna hit a boiling point and we'll see some of those horrifying horrors and vengeances and all those mal plots that he was thinking up. And when it does, if we'll see some serious changes, or hey, at the very least, maybe some positive progress towards the price of honey, because apparently that's the most important cause in the world. Number 5, war. What is it good for? 7 months the Great War, people dead of evil doing. Ruin ever shall not fall to the king. Now, if you've watched any of our previous videos on Nostradamus and other end-of-the-world prediction-style videos, you know that Nostradamus and the other seers tended to keep their predictions pretty vague, but sometimes they spelled it out simple enough that even a simpleton like me can follow along. Nostradamus is predicting a big war, a great war even, in size, not in quality. I don't think there was ever a great war. If the quatrain is anything to go off of, Nostradamus predicts that the war will erupt across Europe and then ravage the countryside, while hopefully keeping the city of Rouen, France in a good spot, and will refuse to fall to the king. Now that part is open to a little bit of interpretation, because really that could mean anything. Who could the king be referring to? Is it one particular world leader? One nation vying for power? Is it the Burger King mascot who's finally snapped and is on a warpath of world domination? He's easily the most unhinged and dangerous of all fast food mascots, and the one I would most expect to start a war. Now, this is obviously a delicate subject, but the current situations across Eastern Europe is already cause for enough alarm. A war that's got everybody on their toes and watching the news constantly. And I don't think anyone wants to see it develop further into a proverbial Great War. A 7-month Great War sounds like it'd be over in a flash, but I think the last thing anyone wants is a war that's over in a flash, knowing the nuclear-powered arsenals out there. Shorter war is not necessarily a good thing. Nuclear annihilation is kind of the last thing anybody needs out there. Hey, hope I'm not bumming you out too much, talking about global conflicts and possibly the end of the world. Let's talk about something fun, like our fun channel. We got all sorts of scary content of just about any topic you can think of. So click through, stay scared, but stay watching this video, because we got a whole lot more predictions left to go. Number 4, Mars and Elon Musk. Listen to this quatrain. The two contenders will unite together. When most others unite with Mars, the African leader is fearful and trembles. The dual alliance is separated by the fleet. This one seems too perfect, you know? Immediately as I read that quatrain, maybe you made the same connection too. Mars, African leader. Immediately coming to my mind is Elon Musk, the South African billionaire tycoon who currently owns Twitter and has been extremely outspoken about his desire to flee this planet and to become the king and colonize the red planet of Mars. But who are these two contenders that have to unite together? Could it be referring to global superpowers coming together for the future of humanity? Or is it Facebook and Twitter coming together and he's just looking to buy more social medias? Some professional followers of Nostradamus' work, such as Lori Reading, has argued in favor of this as well, arguing that this is referring to the billionaire's plans for galactic domination. Another quatrain seems almost connected with this line from another verse. Take a listen. The light of Mars shall go out. Could this be again a reference to the mission? A suggestion that perhaps this dream of Mars is just that, a foolish dream, and that a colony on Mars would fail in upon itself. It also links up bizarrely well with the Opportunity rover. If you remember that from a few years back, the little guy who was rolling around the surface of Mars, its last transmission was, "My battery is fading and I'm going dark," which is almost like directly saying a light of Mars is going out. This is actually starting to creep me out here. Nostradamus might have been magic just a little bit. Time will tell, obviously, if this one remains to be true, although after Twitter, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I don't know if I want to pay $8 a month to subscribe to Mars Blue for a checkmark.
Number 3, a series of viruses. Considering how ill-prepared we turned out to be for the last super virus that ravaged the world, the idea of more viruses in the future is somehow equal parts terrifying and exhausting. Baba Vanga actually predicts a few different viruses will come to light, but the soonest will not affect humans, though it is still disturbing. According to Baba Vanga, in 2023, birds will be subjected to a deadly virus that will transmit through both the air and contaminated water. It will spread incredibly fast, wiping out entire flocks in weeks and leaving many species of bird on the brink of extinction. Scientists will apparently scramble to try and find a cure for our avian friends, but the now common sight of a flock of birds flying through the air will become a distant memory. This doesn't directly affect humans, but considering how much chicken we as a species eat, this will be a tough loss if it comes to pass. Although that is the only virus predicted for this year, Baba Vanga has predicted that there will be a series of viruses over the coming decades, each one more serious than the last. The next virus Baba Vanga predicts will apparently take hold in 2088 and will be unlike anything we've ever seen. It won't cause humans to have trouble breathing or for their immune systems to be compromised, but will apparently cause people to age extremely rapidly, resulting in a young person in their 20s looking like a senior citizen within a few seconds. This virus will apparently be an issue for humanity for almost 10 years, when it is apparently exterminated in 2097. We will then apparently get a break from pandemics until the year 2256, when a rocket sent to explore the deepest parts of the cosmos will return to Earth carrying an intergalactic virus. Hopefully this virus won't be too intense, as a universal cure for all diseases isn't predicted until the year 4304, though by then Baba Vanga says that humans will no longer live on Earth, but on Mars. So, make of that what you will. Number 2, a change in the Earth's orbit. There's a lot of wonderful things to like about the planet Earth. Lush fields, flowing waters, and its orbit exactly where it should be, which is quite an underrated but fantastic trait of the big blue marble we call home. Baba Vanga made another worrying prediction about the state of the Earth for 2023. She predicted that somehow, something is going to knock Earth off of its orbit forever. The Earth's orbit has been altered before, but in this prediction, the alteration is going to be much more significant, causing much more widespread effects. Now, it should go without saying that something knocking Earth off of its orbit would be very bad. If Earth somehow was thrown off its orbit by some terrible force, it would wreak incalculable havoc. Countries would be thrown into cycles of days and nights that would not last for hours, but months at a time. Think of the damage that would cause. Unending daylight would lead to mass sleep deprivation, global anxiety, as well as incalculable damage to our flora and fauna and wildlife. Crops would be ravaged and burnt, leading to a global famine. Unending days would lead to temperatures doubling, melting the ice caps at an even faster rate than they already are. This would result in massively rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal cities. Unending night wouldn't be much better, as it would make things very cold, and plant life would have no way to achieve the necessary photosynthesis, resulting in crop failures and once again, countless deaths. Interestingly, this is a recognized phenomenon called a polar night, and there's a town in Norway that experiences something like this. In Tromsø, the sun doesn't rise from November to January. While this is fine for a Norwegian town, a polar night taking place in important farmland regions that are responsible for feeding massive portions of the population is a recipe for disaster, and that's not even mentioning how much easier that would make it for vampires to attack us. Number 1, an alien invasion. One of Baba Vanga's most surprising predictions for 2023 is that this is the year we will make contact with visitors from another world. Unfortunately for us, these visitors will apparently not be coming in peace. She says that aliens will attack the Earth, and that during their invasion, they will use technology in order to prevent us from using electricity for 3 days and 3 nights, and the Earth will be plunged into total darkness, with neither the moon or stars being visible. We've already gone over how reliant we are on technology in the solar storm entry, so imagine how difficult it would be for us to be suddenly thrown back to the Stone Age, and then have to try and fight an alien race who have extremely advanced technology, as well as a desire to kill us. Baba Vanga claims that this will not be the end of the species as a whole, and that 10,000 of us will survive. But considering that we currently have a planet-wide population of 7.8 billion people, 10,000 survivors indicates only a 1.28% survival rate, meaning that for all practical purposes, it would be the end of the world as we know it. Baba Vanga has predictions for humanity beyond this point, and some of them are truly incredible. They include things like the discovery of time travel, the colonization of other planets, underwater cities, and an eventual peace being made with the extraterrestrials. But considering that if her predictions come true, there's only a 1.28% chance that any of this will be relevant to you, there really is no need for me to get into those right now. Number 5. A dangerous bioweapon. In 1925, the Geneva Convention decided to ban the use of biological weapons in war, with all the countries making a promise to never, under any circumstances, develop, produce, stockpile, or otherwise acquire or retain microbial or other biological agents or toxins, whatever their origin or method of production, of types and in quantities that have no justification for prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purposes. They also agreed not to develop weapons, equipment, or means of delivery designed to use such agents or toxins for hostile purposes or in armed combat. For the most part, the countries of the world have stuck to this agreement, other than some outliers such as the Soviet Union and Iraq. Unfortunately, one of Baba Vanga's predictions for 2023 says that a large country will begin testing a new bioweapon. She is sparse on the details, but if this is true, which of the large nations will be carrying out the test? Will it be Russia, the United States, China? Who? And what is the nature of this bioweapon? Does it contain lab-grown viruses that could wreak havoc on humanity? Or some other deadly mutagen that could permanently alter the DNA of its victims? Although she has had a few predictions that came true, Baba Vanga also said that World War III would begin in 2010, and that by 2016, Europe would become an empty wasteland. So, hopefully, this is one of the predictions that turns out not to be true, as the idea of chemical weapons being unleashed this year is simply too much for me to deal with, on top of everything else going on. Number 4. A solar storm. With all the rather dire predictions made by Baba Vanga, it could be tempting to call her a pessimist. One of her more devastating predictions for the year ahead is that we will experience what is known as a solar storm. A solar storm refers to phenomena taking place on the surface of the sun, such as coronal mass ejections or solar flares. If one of these coronal mass ejections were to reach Earth, it would cause a geomagnetic storm that would have horrible consequences for our technology-reliant world. This kind of storm has happened before on Earth in 1859, in what has since been called the Carrington Event. Due to the work of astronomer Richard Carrington, it resulted in telegraph networks being knocked out, as well as people who were operating the telegraph machines being electrocuted, and even some pretty nasty fires. But it would be much worse if it happened today. Imagine, if you will, a world where all of the technology that you take for granted was suddenly fried and unusable. Suddenly, internet access and records would be lost. Communication systems that we have come to rely on to keep our world running would become useless blocks of dead machinery. A world of darkness where chaos reigns and the financial markets are suddenly put into a dramatic tailspin that we could not even begin to reverse the effects of for years. Think of the chaos that took place relatively recently in Texas when the power grid went down, and imagine what would happen if that took place all over the world. The effect of this happening now could be no less than the total collapse of modern society. This is one of the most plausible predictions made by Baba Vanga, as some scientists say that since this kind of solar activity has happened before, we are overdue for it to happen again, and that it is not a matter of if, but rather a matter of when it happens. Considering the disastrous global consequences of one of these severe solar storms, let us hope that Baba Vanga is incorrect in her prediction that this will happen in 2023.
In third place, we have an alien invasion. DALL-E is a machine learning model that was created by OpenAI to conjure up unusual images from keyword prompts. Created in 2021, so ergo before ChatGPT, it is known as a transformer language model that can turn almost any idea into images. Not gonna lie, whenever I see transformer, I do giggle a little bit, because I can't help but think about like the dang toy and movie franchise. Now, this AI was named after WALL-E, and while I love a good Disney and Pixar reference, that doesn't make any of this less scary to me. When asked what extraterrestrials would look like if they visited planet Earth, the AI produced several concept images. One depicted an eerie, robot-like figure standing in a desert with flying saucers above. Another image showed two humans wearing jeans and jumpers having their heads zapped off by a UFO. And if that wasn't disturbing enough, the creepy AI also conjured a strange naked silver figure running through a field towards a flying saucer. Now here's the thing. Do I believe in aliens? Before I started doing research on them all the time, I might have said no, but now I very much do. I think they're genuinely out there, watching us humans from a distance, occasionally popping their heads down and visiting. Am I afraid of them? 90% of the time my answer to that is no, but after seeing those depictions, it's a little more worrisome. Before someone comments about discrepancies between alien tales over the years, I'd like to state that I firmly believe that visitors coming from different planets and solar systems probably all just look different. And so do humans. In second place, AI is gonna take over the world. The TikTok account Robot Overlords claims to have asked AI, how it's going to take over the world. Because sure, that's not going to produce any kind of nightmares whatsoever. The TikToker hasn't clearly stated which AI is being used to generate the images, but they do use the hashtag Dolly2. So I'm assuming it's the same bot I just talked about with the aliens. Great, I'm going to keep shivering from fear until I go to sleep at this rate. The images revealed in the short video show masses of scary machines. Some of the imagined robots are shown towering over humans. One scene even looks like some last remaining humans moving through a robot city. The TikTok video has over 43,000 likes, but some viewers were more pleased than others. One TikTok user wrote, "Don't put that in their heads." Another joked, "Just spray some water on it." And while joking about gremlins are funny, I repeat, has no one watched iRobot or heard of Superbia? Okay, that last one might be a niche reference, I'll admit it, but there are plenty of examples out in the world as to why we should not rely on tech to the point of dependence. And in our first place, we have AI predicting political stance from photographs. Yep, you heard me correctly. Unlike all the other spots on today's list, this was actually a full, in-depth study that almost had me spit out my water when I first read it. An honest-to-goodness study in Denmark found that artificial intelligence algorithms can help predict a person's political ideology based on their facial characteristics. The tech found right-wing politicians were more likely to have happy facial expressions in photos, while people pictured with neutral facial expressions were more likely to identify as left-wing. It used deep learning to predict ideology from facial photographs using expressions, beauty, and extra facial information, and found that AI can predict a person's political ideology with 61% accuracy when analyzing a photo of a person. That may not sound like a lot when the usual guess is 50%, but that's a big extra 11%. Deep learning, a method in AI where computer scientists teach computers to learn and process information similar to humans, can be used to make predictions about people based on photographs alone, which is what the researchers explained in their very fancy paper on this. The scientists tried to pin down exactly what information contributes to the predictive success of these techniques. According to the researchers, humans as a whole are able to read another person's face and make judgments almost immediately about personality, intelligence, and even political ideologies, so I guess they guess, why can't robots do the same thing? Intelligence and even political ideologies, so I guess they guess, why can't robots do the same thing? Yeah, that doesn't sit well with me. Study author Stig Rasmussen of Aarhus University and his colleagues explored, if computational neural networks, which are algorithms that mimic the structure and function of human brains, can predict a person's political ideology based on a single photo alone. The scientists trained the neural network with thousands of photos of politicians from the nation's 2017 municipal elections, noting the elections were not highly polarized nor competitive. They did away with any photos of candidates who were not explicitly left or right-wing, were not of European ethnic origin, or had been photographed with a beard. To make the playing field as leveled as possible, the photos only depicted the facial features of the candidates, not photos with backgrounds that could alter predictions. The researchers were left with 4,647 photos of political candidates, 1,442 of which depicted female politicians. The researchers used facial expression recognition technology from Microsoft to measure the emotional state seen in the photos, as well as other algorithms to determine attractiveness and even masculinity of the candidates. They also used a handful of photos of Danish politicians to test the algorithm's accuracy. All in all, the research found that the AI trained on the data could accurately predict ideology to the tune of 61%, showing the algorithms could predict political affiliation better than pure chance. They wrote that the results confirmed the threat to privacy posed by deep learning approaches, and no kidding! The research found female politicians who were more attractive were more likely conservative, while attractiveness and masculinity for men was not tied to political ideology. Faces of both men and women who appeared happier were also more likely to be right-wing, while neutral facial expressions meant the politicians were more likely members of the left-wing parties. The study added that, though it was more rare, women who showed contempt on their faces were more likely left-leaning. Honestly, while I'd love to see that expanded in theory, the thoughts of how this could be used for awful things in profiling terrify me. Someone somewhere would totally use this to discriminate in some sort of hiring situation, and that just does not sit well at all with me. In fifth place, we have an onslaught of natural disasters. Alrighty, so time for some context, since not all of today's predictions are coming from the same AI source, and also I like to make sure I'm as crystal clear as possible with all of y'all out there. The Daily Star asked popular AI language model ChatGPT to write its own prophecies with the help of legendary French astrologer Nostradamus, and proceeded to publish the text conversation between the AI and Nostradamus, which resulted in 7 new predictions over the next 100 years. So Nostradamus was famous for his predictions made in the 1500s, which some believe foretold modern events, such as the rise of Adolf with the last name this platform doesn't like, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and the September 11 attacks, in addition to thousands of predictions that he published in his book, Les Prophecies, 467 years ago, to be exact. Oh, and before I forget, the definition of natural disaster is a disaster with links to natural hazards that can cause loss of life or damaged property, and typically leaves economic damage in its wake. The severity of the damage depends on the affected population's resilience and on the infrastructure available. Examples of natural hazards include avalanche, coastal flooding, cold wave, earthquake, hail, heat wave, hurricane, ice storm, landslide, lightning, riverine flooding, strong wind, tornado, typhoon, tsunami, volcanic activity, wildfire, and winter weather, just to name a few. A disaster is a result of a natural or human-made hazard impacting a vulnerable community, and in modern times the difference between natural, human-made, and human-accelerated disasters is a whole lot of messy gray area. Human choices and activities like architecture, fire, resource management, and climate change can play a role in causing natural disasters. Now, if that sounds super heckin' convoluted, it's because it very much is. And many brainy scholars have been saying that the term natural disaster is unsuitable and should be abandoned. Oh, right. The prediction. Pardon me, I got sidetracked. Humanity's fight against climate change may reach its peak in less than 30 years, as the AI Nostradamus warns that 2050 may be a year plagued by natural disasters that terrorize people all over the world. The prediction says, in 2050 there will be a storm, while climate change will wreak havoc again, there will be fires, floods, and hurricanes. Nature will unleash a terrible surprise. Man must scramble to find a way to fix the earth before he goes astray, but greed and indifference will take their toll, a stark reminder of the role of humanity. Well, that feels pretty biblical. After everything humanity has gone through in the last few years, I'm hoping this winds up being a whole lot of bunk. We've gone through enough major crap for a generation. Thanks! In fourth place, we have the AI revolution. This is the other listing on this list that came from Nostradamus and ChatGPT, and this is where I admit I'm not any kind of AI overall expert. The AI warned that humans might fall into fear and anxiety of the artificial intelligence revolution in 2060. The prediction says, in 2060, robots and machines will develop, it will be a vibrant revolution, industries must be reshaped all over the world. But fear and anxiety will also loom as jobs and futures are lost. A person must adapt to learn again, to coexist with and penetrate technology. Well, that's just terrifying. Learn to coexist with? I have a feeling it's not talking about simply introducing grandparents to how a smartphone works. Before today, all I knew about ChatGPT was the occasional meme, and I had a friend once ask me if I, used it to write these videos, which I was horrified could even be a reality. I promise you all, my words here and always will be my own. Yes, I'm the kind of gal who says stuff like cripes and euchred on a regular basis. Now you might be asking, okay Alexa, that's cute and all, but how is it relevant? Well, has anyone seen iRobot? Or heck, done any research on ChatGPT? For the folks like me who had no idea on what the heck the basis of ChatGPT was until now, allow me to share what I've learned today. ChatGPT, which is short for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer, was developed by OpenAI and launched on November 30th of 2022. The goal is to enable users to refine and steer a conversation towards a desired length, format, style, level of detail, and language used. Successive prompts and replies are taken into account at each stage of the conversation as a context. By January of this year, it had become the fastest growing consumer software application in history, getting over 100 million users. Within months, Google, Baidu, and Meta accelerated the development of their competing projects, Palm E, ErnieBot, and Llama, to be specific. Now, some folks have expressed concern over the potential of ChatGPT to displace or atrophy human intelligence, and I'm on that team for sure. Going back to mentioning iRobot, because I sure as heck wasn't going to leave that as a statement without a follow-up, if that movie taught me anything other than, just how underrated Alan Tudyk is as a performer, it's that over-reliance and giving too much agency to AI and technology will only cause a cluster mess of epic proportions.
Number 3. A world at war. War! What is it good for? Absolutely nothing, I think, is the usual accepted answer. Well, that good-for-nothing horseman of the apocalypse is always rearing its head, and Nostradamus predicted that we'd be experiencing a lot of them. A passage reads, "Blue head shall white head harm in such degree, as France's good to both shall e'er amount." Now, I gonna be honest with you, I have no idea what that means. That doesn't really sound like much, unless there's a war of blue-headed people. I found one reading saying that this was predicting that France would be beaten at the World Cup, which is definitely possible, but I feel like Nostradamus would shoot a little higher than making sports bets. Most analysts seem to think that this point towards a war, so take a listen to this passage as well. This one reads, 7 months the great war, people dead of evil doing. Ruin ever shall not fall to the king. Now this prediction spells it out a little more clearly. Nostradamus thinks that there's going to be a great war that will spill over and into Europe, and that France will be a key player and a battleground for it. It's easy to see why this prediction could ring true, especially with how things are, going the way they are right now. There's already enough tension brewing, and I think the threat of a world war is something that's kind of looming in the back of everyone's minds already when we watch the news. While there is always a war burning somewhere across this globe. This prediction specifically outlines that this could evolve into something much, much bigger, into a great war, possibly, instead of one of those humble good ones. I'm joking, of course, there are no good ones. Possibly involving the entire planet in a global conflict. And while I'm sure a great war might make for a few good Hollywood action movies years after the fact, I think we should all work to avoid a third world war. Most trilogies usually have a really disappointing third one, you know? Let's just hope for our sake that Nostradamus isn't accurate on this one. Number 2. An asteroid. A great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will appear both stupefying and marvelous. Shortly afterwards, there will be an earthquake. I doubt Nostradamus had ever seen fireworks, so the prediction of this being that we're all gonna have a great party with fireworks for 3 days and then we're gonna party so much it'll rumble the earth, I don't think that's super likely. No, fire from the sky and earthquakes are never a good thing. That's usually kind of the symptoms of like apocalyptic stuff alongside boiling seas and demon walking the earth, fire raining down. Now this line could refer to a couple things, possibly. It could be alluding to something man-made, like a strike of some kind. But translators and experts of Nostradamus' writings believe that this could be referring to an asteroid strike on the planet with devastating impact. Asteroids pass by the Earth every single day already, and the likelihood of one colliding with the planet and causing serious damage is a real possibility, and all of us going the way of the dinosaurs. Fortunately for us, NASA has been cooking up predictions of their own, and they assure us that there is no danger of any collisions on record for 2022, or for the next 100 years, for that matter, claims a recent study. The asteroid Apophis was said to be flying worryingly close to Earth's orbit, on track for a possible collision in 2029, and as well, a slight risk of collision in 2068. But thankfully, continued monitoring and updated scans have shown that everything should be all clear for the next 100 years. Nice to know that the seer can get wrong every once in a while, you know? Keeps them humble. Of course, there is always the possibility, like I mentioned, that great fire falling from the sky could be referring to something a little darker than an asteroid. Like I said, maybe something man-made or something a bit more cosmic, like say a celestial fire of some kind. Speaking of celestial fires, actually funny, that's so funny, I was just talking about celestial fires earlier. Let's get on to the next point, which is number 1, Celestial Fire and the New World Order. Celestial Fire and the New World Order sounds like they would have been the absolute coolest 80s prog rock supergroup. I bet their first album was fantastic and the rest of them fell off. Disregard that fantasy for a minute, and let's get back to the topic at hand. Nostradamus' predictions. In his big old book of prophecies, Nostradamus wrote that there would be a celestial fire on the royal edifice. So what does that mean? King Charles's house is about to catch fire? Well, something about the word celestial really throws this one for me. You know, celestial is not an adjective that you just toss in willy-nilly. I feel like that's reserved for when something is descending from the cosmos, end of days, apocalypse stuff. Well, not to worry, this prediction gets worse. They always get worse. The prediction goes on to state that through the ashes of this celestial fire on the royal edifice will rise a new order, hey, another prog rock group, and that an unlikely alliance between 2 great powers will come together. What those 2 great powers could be, though, is anyone's guess. Is it Marvel and DC? Apple and Android? Coke and Pepsi? Whoever it may be, it's said that things will never be the same and the alliance's effect will not be good for us. Now, Nostradamus wrote many predictions on the royal family, and some even claim that he accurately predicted Queen Elizabeth's passing. He had this to add on about King Charles specifically. Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who they later considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands. A man will replace who never expected to be king. Could this be referring to King Charles being replaced in favor of a new king? Could this be related to this new world order Nostradamus is predicting, with someone no one ever expected to be king, and that unlikely alliance getting formed? We're not sure yet, but as time goes on, more and more of Nostradamus' predictions keep turning out to be true, so we'll find out soon enough, I'm sure, and you'll find out here. Number 5, Mars landing. Among his many, many crypticisms, Nostradamus wrote a light on Mars failing. Now, initially, it seems like just a vague statement, until you remember that a few years ago, the Opportunity rover, which was traveling through Mars, broadcasted its last message from the surface of the red planet. Its last message read, "My battery is low and it's getting dark," which was the final transmission received from the Opportunity rover to NASA when the solar-powered robot was caught in a massive dust storm, described as one of the biggest dust storms observed on Mars, which engulfed the planet whole and turned the day into night, smothering the poor robot's battery, leading it to send that final, poignant transmission. Now, could this be the light on Mars failing that Nostradamus was referring to? It's hard to argue that it doesn't match up just a little bit eerily. I mean, come on, a light on Mars failing, and here you have a sad robot saying that its battery is dying out. Of course, this won't be the end of mankind's journey to the Red Planet. Succeeding the Opportunity rover is the Curiosity rover, which is currently roving around the rock right now as you watch this video. Elon Musk, billionaire and Twitter poster, has made no secret whatsoever of his goals for Mars, calling it his life's greatest work and a mission central to humanity. SpaceX has made several of their own predictions about sending men to Mars, with their earliest estimates being that by 2030 we will have manned crews walking the surface of Mars. One has to wonder if Nostradamus could have ever predicted man walking on the surface of another planet. It's hard for us to imagine that, but Musk and his company insists it'll be sooner than we think. Now, Nostradamus also predicted back in his book of prophecies that you would subscribe to Top 5 Scary for the best scary stories and content on the web. Was he right? Because I'm pretty sure he was right. Number 4. Civil unrest. In that big old book of chilling quatrains, our good friend Nostradamus had this to write. The trumpet shakes with great discord, and agreement broken. Lifting the face to heaven, the bloody mouth will swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Probably the most outright sinister sounding of any of Nostradamus' prediction, unless the trumpet shaking with great discord just means there's going to be an awesome marching band parade going through the world. This one could mean a lot, but analysts and experts of Nostradamus' work generally agree that they think this is predicting a time of great civil unrest, dated for 2022. In the last couple years, we've already seen more civil unrest globally than we have before, with protests all over the globe for a number of social causes and pressing concerns. It's not unlikely at all to think that this sleeping discontent in the masses is going to keep rising, and it's very likely there will be more protests. This could tie in with a point we made in the previous Nostradamus video, in which he highlighted a prediction for 2022 that said he believed that inflation and starvation would rise so much that so high the price of wheat that man is stirred to his fellow man to eat in his despair. Now obviously that could be taken literally, and I sincerely hope not, because I don't think I would taste good at all. I'm a bit stringy and I eat terribly, so I would be awful for your diet. No, instead, myself and others think that it's alluding to the eat the rich sentiment and movement, and that these two predictions are linked together. You know, we've already seen so much unrest and so many protests for years from people struggling to get by, and as wages stay the same and working conditions worsen across the globe, it's increasingly worrisome that maybe someday it's all boiling into something really, really big. Finishing off in the original quatrain, Nostradamus wrote, "Sooner and later, you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances." So maybe there's some positivity out of it, you know, some great changes. Maybe we'll all get a 4-day weekend. We just have to ignore the dreadful horrors, I guess. Number 3. Man, did this guy only ever predict depressing stuff? Could he not have just predicted just once that maybe it would be beautiful weather year round, the Leafs would have a good season, and the McRib would come back? No, sadly it was mostly doom prophecies. Check this one out. No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in despair. International political instability, the pandemic, and Brexit have all contributed pretty nefariously to inflation. And let me tell you, as a guy who struggles to balance his checkbook, it has been a nightmare finding cheap honey. I'm serious, go on Amazon right now. Google raw honey and candle wax. Of all the things for a sage to be completely accurate on, I wasn't expecting it to be the economics of honey and wax, but hey, it's real. This is a personal issue I'm gonna have to set aside for now. But one has to wonder too with the phrase, his fellow man to eat in despair. Did Nostradamus have some insight into the popularity of the eat the rich movement? Well, that's always been a popular thing to spray paint over a bank wall or write on a poster board to take to a protest. After the pandemic, that sentiment has been more pronounced than ever in recent years, with large swaths of the population rightfully being upset about wage and income disparity that exists. It's hard enough for the common man to make a living out there, let alone being able to afford good, reliable honey. And if you know a supplier for that, drop a link please. My DMs are always open to talk honey. Number 2. If you asked me 5 years ago to predict what the future of finances would look like, I don't think I ever would have guessed the rise of NFTs or cryptocurrency. I mean, I don't think anyone could have estimated that we'd ever have an economy based around trading pictures of bored apes wearing sailor hats. Well, except of course Nostradamus could have predicted it, because he predicts everything. Could the French seer have predicted cryptocurrency? Take a quick listen to this. The copies of gold and silver inflated, which after the theft were thrown into the lake, at the discovery that all is exhausted and dissipated by the debt, all scripts and bonds will be wiped out. Recently, gold has been surging, and a whole wave and movement was born around moving towards cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, as a new infallible gold standard. Waves of Silicon Valley engineers and executives have left their high-level positions to pursue cryptocurrency startups, and the push to try and decentralize currency and move towards cryptocurrency has been very real in recent years and growing more and more. Could we really move away from physical cash altogether? Especially after the pandemic, we've seen more and more businesses and operations move towards cashless transactions altogether, moving towards all of our money being stored digitally, which stresses me out a lot because I have a hard time enough managing money when it's in front of me, let alone when it's imaginary. Maybe it's a lot to ask that Nostradamus could have predicted so much the idea of digital currency, but there's a lot to think about as ideas of a new form of currency taking shape. I've got to say though, if he really was as much of a prophet as they say he was, he would have invested in Bitcoin early, started seeing those real profits. Number 1. Keeping on his predictions about the technology of the future, could Nostradamus have predicted the rise of AI and the looming threat of a technological takeover? Honestly, more likely than you think. Feast your ear holes on this little stanza. The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it, by his disciples invited to be immortal. Eyes to the south, hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire. Now, this does sound a little bit like something a wizard in a cave might whisper you over a crystal ball before sending you on a journey, but bear with it. Some experts firmly believe that this could be an allusion to the rise of the digital era. The new sage with a lone brain sees it, by his disciples invited to be immortal. I don't want to stroke his ego too much by referring to them as sages, but Mark Zuckerberg has made it incredibly clear that he believes the future of the world and humanity as a whole is going to be virtual in his quest to create the metaverse, creating a world where literally the body will be left behind. Bodies in the fire, invited to be immortal. Do you think we could get to an era where we start living like we're in the Matrix, uploading our consciousness to a digital realm? What was once pure fantasy is encroaching on our reality closer and closer with each passing day, and I honestly think it'll be sooner than we're expecting before we're all living in that digital world. Number 5. The Queen and the Royal Family.
Golden thread running through the generations. That's how one of Queen Elizabeth II's many prime ministers described her reign, the longest in British history.
One of the most concerningly accurate predictions our boy Michelle predicted was that in 2022, Queen Elizabeth would pass and her son would take her place, but abdicate his position. In his original writings in 1555, Nostradamus wrote, "At the end of the war, the great powers change. Near the shore, 3 beautiful children are born, ruin to the people when they are of age, to change the country's kingdom and see it grow no more. The children are Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip's grandchildren, Prince William, Henry, and Princess Beatrice." The conflict could refer to the 1982 Malvinas War between the UK. Princess Diana gave birth to William 7 days after the war ended. Could Nostradamus be claiming that the end of Queen Elizabeth could be the end of the monarchy? Well, another writing of his adds to that. Check this out. Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who later they considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands, and a man will replace him who never expected to be king. Now, if you're like me and you struggle a bit to decipher centuries-old riddles, there are experts like Mario Reading, a British author, to do it for us. Reading explains the thinking, writing that after the Queen's death, Prince Charles will be crowned and become king of the islands. That part's already happened. However, a certain proportion of the British population following his divorce from Diana still persists that the pressure on him is so great and his age so much against him that Charles will agree to abdicate in favor of his elder son, Prince William. So it sounds like before he was even born, Nostradamus could sense that no one wanted King Charles. That obvious, huh? And hey, here's a prediction from me. By the end of this video, you'll subscribe to Top 5 Scary for scary videos every day and the best hosts in the game. I got a strong feeling I'm right. Here's an ominous one for you.
Humans, it says, are without doubt responsible for global warming and will pay an ever-increasing price. That includes more of what we've already seen this year: parched fields, forests on fire, and deadly heat.
Like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea. The Black Sea's living fish shall all but boil. When Rhodes and Genoa half-starved shall be, the local folk to cut them up shall toil. Well, thankfully, we're not quite at the point of literal boiling fish in the sea, but that's not to say we're not rapidly approaching that reality. It's easy to interpret like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea, as a warning for the increasing rise in temperatures we've seen across the globe this year. 2022 has already been a record-breaking year for climate change, and not in a way that's particularly good for anybody. July of 2022 was one of the hottest months globally, among the top 10 hottest in global history. But it's fine, I'm sure. We just need to walk to work a little bit more, use paper straws, and we'll really get a handle on this thing. The death of coral reefs, eradication of natural habitats, and the worrisome decline in fish populations worldwide could all point to Nostradamus being right about this one, predicting boiling fish and the common folk starving. Not trying to scare you too much, but some experts predict that if we keep going at the rate we're at, the world's oceans could be totally empty of all fish by 2048. For my own sake, I sincerely hope Nostradamus is wrong about us in this one, because if I'm ever at a pub and I can't get a clam chowder or fish and chips, I just don't know that any of this will be worth it anymore.
Number 3 on this list is robot librarians. There's been a large movement recently, a push I guess, about how robots or automated machines are going to be taking our jobs. 100 years ago, if you would have brought this up, people would have thought that you're crazy, but nowadays it's a real thing that's happening. In fact, it's already going on. Car manufacturers, for instance, an industry that used to have a ton of jobs for people 100 years ago, is almost all machine operated now. At the end of the day, they're just simply quicker, more efficient, less accident prone, and don't need to get paid hourly. These robots are taking all kinds of jobs other than just car manufacturers as well. The Simpsons, believe it or not, actually predicted one of them. NME says, another highlight from Lisa's wedding here, as Lisa's college librarian turns out to be an android and one who violently burst into flames too. There haven't been any blown circuit board disasters in Chicago yet, but in 2011 it was announced the city's new Joe Enrica Mansueto library would have a robotic librarian who'd helpfully retrieve books for you. You know, I always thought about librarians as having a human element to them, but I guess robots would know more about books than we would. I don't know though, still feels super weird and creepy to have a robot explain to you what a book is about or something. Also, literally taking human jobs right now. Like, if they can do a librarian's job, then why can't they do a teacher's job or a business person's job or my job? Ugh. Number 2 on this list is the voting. The last time we did a video, we looked at this incident, but I think in the current political climate and the state of the world right now, it has to be revisited. In 2018, The Simpsons released an episode where it had Homer voting for the next American president. He had two options. There was Barack Obama and John McClane, who were both actually going for it at the time. In the episode, Homer very clearly clicks to vote for Obama, but the machine that he's using decides that it wants him to vote for John McClane. A funny joke and a stab at elections and voting and all that. Little did we know how accurate it was about to become though. Fast forward to the next election. Now it's between Obama and Mitt Romney for the American presidency. This time, the funny gag in The Simpsons, well, that actually happens in real life. A voting machine for Pennsylvania had to be removed because it kept changing any votes for Obama to votes for Romney. There was a full-on video that surfaced on the internet of somebody trying to vote for Obama but just couldn't because of the machine. Luckily, this was fixed and didn't cause too much of a stir in the actual results of the election. But American election scandals were far from over. Remember all the scandals about the potential Russian involvement in the election? About how they rigged the vote and gave Donald Trump an unfair advantage? We've never fully confirmed that, but basically that was predicted by The Simpsons as well if it did actually happen. It's not quite the same as a busted voting machine, but it definitely would have been tampering with the election, which was the whole thing The Simpsons were making fun of in the first place. Hopefully from here on out we can have some solid, non-messy elections and keep this Simpsons thing as it was intended to be. Just a funny joke. And finally, number 1 on this list is President Trump. Regardless of your political views, predicting a president literally decades before they actually become president is kind of a scary ability. That's exactly what The Simpsons did though with President Trump. NME says The Simpsons writers predicted Donald Trump would become president back in 2000. The episode, Bart to the Future, envisions the futures of Bart and Lisa Simpson. The latter, with an uncanny resemblance to Hillary Clinton, has become the first female president of the United States. As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump, she says to her advisors. They then inform her that her predecessor has bankrupted the country. So Lisa is literally alluding to the fact that Trump was the president and that during his presidency, he left the country in financial shambles and now she needs to dig him out of the hole. Not totally far from the truth, honestly. How the hell did The Simpsons know this? Was this just luck of the draw? Clearly, The Simpsons must know some stuff that we don't, folks. Look out for their next presidential prediction. It might just come true. on this list is the Greek financial crisis. Greece, one of the most beautiful places in the world. A destination on pretty much all of our vacation lists, I think. Back in 2015, it got a whole lot cheaper for us to go there if we wanted to as well, because the Greek economy basically completely collapsed. Now, Greece for a while had been looking like they were in trouble monetarily speaking, but in 2015 it all came crashing down. Investopedia says, in 2015 Greece defaulted on its debt. While some said Greece simply fell into arrears, its missed payment of 1.6 billion euros to the International Monetary Fund was the first time in history a developed nation has missed such a payment. So that was a really bad thing to happen, and basically meant that Greece was bankrupt. Millions of Greek citizens lost their jobs during this time. It was also a time where a lot of Greek people were leaving the country because they simply couldn't get any jobs in Greece. Well, believe it or not, an issue as complex and devastating as this one was predicted by The Simpsons. Or at least it was predicted to some extent. NME writes, the financial crisis in Greece rumbled on in 2015, hogging headlines for weeks, but the US show saw things going awry years before. Just witness this small subtle gag in the 2013 episode Politically Inept with Homer Simpson. As Springfield's most lovable buffoon is being interviewed on TV, a news ticker flashes on screen below with the headline, Europe puts Greece on eBay. So it's not a direct prediction stating that the entire country's economy is going to fall apart, but putting a country on eBay paints a pretty clear picture, I'd say. Number 4 on this list is the three-eyed fish. Three-eyed fish, not really something that I think anybody wants to see. Kinda something that you would expect to be swimming around Dr. Frankenstein's aquarium if he ever had one. Well, The Simpsons took it a step further. NME says, in a 1990 episode, Bart catches a mutated three-eyed fish in the local river, a nod to the pollutant effects of the town's nuclear power plant. Over 20 years later, in 2011, a real-life fish and practically a dead ringer for its cartoon counterpart was discovered in an Argentinian reservoir located near a nuclear facility. Now, there are a number of reasons why nuclear power has some question marks associated with it, but like, this is a major one right here. Literally a three-eyed fish, guys. And that's just one of the fish that we've seen. Think about how many other fish that are waiting to be found down there that have like legs growing out of them and stuff like that. It also makes you think about some of the horrible disasters that we've seen from power plants like this before. Obviously, Chernobyl is the one that comes to mind. If this fish happened to have this happen to it by just being around a plant, then think about what happened to the animals near that disaster. Like, we could have had a full-on mutant creature roaming around that area and just have no idea about it. Hopefully The Simpsons don't predict any more mutant stuff, because I don't want to be doing a video about how they got that right as well.
In third place, we have the prediction of crazy earthquakes. Quoting again from, take a wild guess here. Did you guess the book of Matthews? You're brilliant! The Bible mentions earthquakes in a prophecy that Jesus gave, his words being recorded as follows. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be food shortages and earthquakes in one place after another. Jesus thus foretold that great earthquakes would occur in one place after another at a time when wars, food shortages, and pestilences would also be taking place. Together, these events identify a period in human history known as the conclusion of the system of things, or the last days. Kind of like a puzzle coming together, the three predictions I've listed so far tend to all come hand in hand. The National Earthquake Information Center now locates about 20,000 earthquakes around the globe each year, or approximately 55 per day. As a result of the improvements in communications and the increased interest in natural disasters, the public now learns about earthquakes more quickly than ever before. According to long-term records that date back to 1900, we expect about 16 major earthquakes in any given year. That includes 15 earthquakes in the magnitude 7 range and one earthquake of a magnitude, say, 8.0 or greater. In the past 40 to 50 years, our records show that we have exceeded the long-term average number of major earthquakes about a dozen times. So far, the year with the largest total was 2010, with 23 major earthquakes, the definition of which being 7.0 in magnitude or greater. In other years, the total was well below the annual long-term average of 16 major earthquakes. For example, 1988 had only 7 major earthquakes, and 1989 having 6. Knowing how much devastation a minor earthquake can cause though, never mind a large one, I'd like to not witness this prediction come to fruition. Thanks. In second place, we have the second coming of Christ, otherwise known as the rapture. Many different religions have predicted this ever since it was said that Jesus ascended to heaven thousands of years ago. The Catholic Church believes at the moment of Jesus' arrival, 3 events will happen immediately. The living will pass, The universe will be transfigured, and the dead will be resurrected, judged, and recompensed. After this single instant or moment, the church does not know what will happen for the rest of eternity. Only that final and eternal judgment by God of the people in every nation will result in the glorification of some and the punishment of others. Personally, this sounds like a nightmare. A single source of instantaneous judgment deciding everyone's fate? Only a single God knowing what day and when this is going to happen? Yeah, once again, hard pass. Also, while the return of a savior may sound good in theory, I'd like to bring up another view on it. How many of y'all enjoy a zombie movie? Yeah, me too. Now, remind me, how do those start? With someone returning from the dead. I'm sure you catch my drift here. Adding on to the plague spot from earlier, just imagine what someone who passed away 2,000 years ago could bring back with them. We also have no clue if other spirits could return with Jesus. As history has shown, troublesome spirits and demonic powers have ways of getting what they want by attaching themselves to innocent beings, or posing as such to trick us. Once again, as much as I love discussing demonic powers that have made their way to Earth, I highly disapprove of anything that could attract them here. I'm begging you here, for the love of all things in the world, leave the gosh dang Ouija board on the shelf at the store. Please. Finally, we have my personal favorite, the Antichrist. Remember a minute ago when I talked about things that could take Jesus' place by posing as him? Yeah, time to elaborate on that front. The technical definition of the Antichrist refers to people prophesied by the Bible to oppose Jesus and substitute themselves in Christ's place before the second coming. The term Antichrist is found 4 times in the New Testament, solely in the first and second epistle of John. The Antichrist is announced as the one who denies the Father and Son. Now look, I don't really believe in a singular male god myself, which I'm sure total shocker to all of y'all, but I don't think that alone would make me or anyone else with similar beliefs the Antichrist. So I'll elaborate more if you don't click off right now. Yes, pay attention. The Antichrist would be the polar opposite and ultimate enemy of Christ. According to Christian tradition, he will reign terribly in the period prior to the Last Judgment. The Last Judgment being the day that Jesus returns to either save or, condemn us, depending on where you fall under his and God's mortal compass. The term Antichrist first appeared in the letters of John. I know, not Matthew's for once. And the fully developed story of the Antichrist's life and reign is found in medieval texts. The revelation to John refers to this figure as the beast from the abyss and the beast from the sea. In the most sustained account of his appearance, he is called the man of sin and son of perdition. He will come at a time of a general apostasy, lack of faith, deceive people with signs and wonders, sit in the temple of God, and claim to be God himself. Finally, he will be defeated by Jesus, who will destroy him by the spirit of his mouth and the brightness of his coming. I guess I'll make a note to keep a pair of sunglasses in my purse from here on out. In terms of direct comparison, with Jesus being born of a virgin by means of immaculate conception by the Holy Spirit, the Antichrist will be born of a lady of the night by means of conception by a diabolical spirit. Although opinions differed as to whether the Antichrist's father will be a man or demon, in either case the Antichrist will be, as commonly noted in the Middle Ages, full of the devil from the time of his conception. He will be born of the tribe of Dan, known as the viper in the road, rather than the tribe of Judah, and in Babylon, not Bethlehem. Like Christ, the Antichrist will grow up in obscurity and begin his open ministry when he reaches the age of 30, gaining followers by giving signs and performing miracles. The signs and miracles once more would be polar opposites of Christ, because, the Antichrist's supposed miracles will only be tricks, with his triumphant reign lasting for around 3.5 years. Like Christ, the Antichrist will make his way to Jerusalem, but unlike Jesus, he will be enthusiastically hailed and revered. During his reign, he will rebuild the temple and sit on the throne of Solomon while he converts the rulers of the earth to his cause. All who resist him will be tortured, and there will be great suffering to an extreme that has not been experienced since the beginning of time. The prophets Enoch and Elijah, who never died but were spirited away to heaven, will arrive to preach against the tyrant, but the Antichrist will slay them. At the end of this allotted 3.5 years, however, the Antichrist will be destroyed by the power of Christ, and after a short amount of time will come the Last Judgment and the end of the world. Not to sound like a broken record, but once again, yikes! I'd rather not have that battle or have this world end. Sure, it's not perfect by any means, and while I could stand here for about an hour and list off a long list of things I'd really love to see improve, I don't want to face an all-out battle.